All right, getting working. Where my Steph head's at? Who's jumping over from Steph? Let me know.
Heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat you. He can do things with his tongue you wouldn't believe it. Don't touch my hands because they're dirty. Very large brain. I know words, I know best words. And enormous, really enormous. Look. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges. Deliberately, willfully, and with total premeditation. Obama. To be a stank singer. Yesterday's a hard word for me. You know, we just set another sock rock.
All right, let's get started. Let's get ready. Okay. Oh. 1 second. Everybody hit that like. How are we doing on likes? Let people know we're here. Otherwise the show won't exist and people won't know and it's just confusing.
Peace and strength on the earth beyond.
All right. Okay, let's just go with it. Let's go. Hey, everybody, how are you? Good to see you. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I don't really care. I'm just glad you're here. You know, time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so. Those are the masterful words of our dear friend and past compatriot Douglas Adams. The second book I owned my own copy of, first being The Hobbit. The second was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I still have my well-leafed copy of it. I hope you own one as well. If not, I hope all of his books have a place in your Kindle. You know how I mean that. Look out. And by the way, good morning, chat room. How are you? Oh, I'm glad it's 12:07 here in Maine. Yes, well into the afternoon. I don't know why I said good morning. I apologize. That was wrong of me. It's just so there's only so much I can do, Deborah. I'm monkeying around with time. I feel badly now. Happy time span period. Sure, why not? I did say good morning, and I meant it because to me it's morning, and it will be for a little while longer. It is Hump Day indeed, and Philip Bittner will be joining us from Kiev. I believe he's still there. He might be moving around. We don't know, but from Ukraine, nevertheless. In the second hour, I was about to say 10 o'clock, but that means nothing to someone who's on the East Coast. So at the top of the next hour, I sound very NPR right now. I guess the big story this morning is this business. RFK Jr. says doctors found a dead worm in his brain. Obviously it starved to death. It ate. The presidential candidate has faced previously undisclosed health issues, including a parasite that he said ate part of his brain. It ate. You didn't see this? If you haven't seen this, it's kind of glorious. I don't wish this on anyone, and I certainly hope it's not a good thing. I don't wish that on anybody ever. But I would say that if I'm just gonna put it out there that if I had been a heroin user, for example, in my past, and I had fucked around on my wife repeatedly and was a sketchy dude for a long time, and I would not make fun of someone's addict son in that case, or use that as an excuse for why visit the sins of the son upon the father, if indeed I had those sins myself and I was seeking to have the job that the father has. I'm just spitballing. The other one is, of course, is that if I had a worm that ate part of my brain, I don't know that I would make fun of the age or cognitive ability of any of my opponents, especially the one that's older than I am and has managed to live his entire life without a worm in his brain. So there. Yeah, he could have used ivermectin. I agree. We've said this before, that if you think ivermectin helped you with your COVID, it means you had worms. Congratulations. If you say ivermectin worked for me, what you're saying to everyone is you had worms and it helped. And I'm glad it did. That's what it's for. Fantastic. Didn't do much for your COVID, but you might have been in a situation where COVID could have taken you out if that worm infection had gotten out of control. So it helped dial that back. And I think JoJo from Jersey's statement on it, if I may, is pretty right on the money. Hold the fuck on. Anybody who opens a statement, JoJo, we love you. Hold the fuck on. RFK Jr. said a worm got into his brain, ate a part of it, and then died. And as a result, he now has cognitive issues. And this guy wants to be president. What the fuck is even happening? I agree. I mean, I thought it was simple enough this morning, chat room, that we have, and I just posted this, and I don't know why this isn't a bigger news story, right? This seems pretty clear to me. There are 3 men running for office. 2 of them show up repeatedly on Epstein's Lolita Express flight logs. The other one is Joe Biden. Just saying. Of the 3 people, the one that never shows up on the Lolita Express flight logs is Joe Biden. The only one of the 3 that doesn't show up on those flight logs is Joe Biden. Trump's on there a bunch. So is RFK Jr. a bunch. With his family. Brought his children on Epstein's plane. You know who never flew on Epstein's plane? Joe Biden. Just like to clarify that. You know what I mean? I think that deserves that's a decent check mark. Just put that right next to all the other reasons like infrastructure. And by the way, some dude, when I posted this, who obviously is using his real name and stuff, uses the gif of Biden saying hi to somebody. He walks up and goes, "Hey, man," like that. And then he walks off stage that way, and then he goes back around and talks to the person at the event because he's leaving. He's like, "There you are." Joe Rogan, this is the clip that Joe Rogan uses as an example that supposedly Joe was shaking hands with no one and couldn't find the stairs. And Rogan uses this one a bunch. He still believes this is what he says it is. And this is how bad Rogan is. Even Glenn Beck has admitted this is fake. That this is cut to make it look like, so you don't see the person he was talking with, and that he left the stage and then he came around and spoke to them. He's like, "Hey, there you are. Wait, I'm gonna come down there and see you." That's what that was. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing a dude who knows somebody in the crowd and wants to go talk to him. So he leaves. But that doesn't work for the narrative, so you got to cut this little piece out, and you run it on a loop, and you think that this is going to solve it. So indeed, I said he's saying hi to someone he knows in the audience. He spoke with them after. Get off Rogan's dick. Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of guys that jump in there. And by the way, I got to say, I don't really rely on what's posted on Twitter. It's kind of refreshing. Like, I like seeing what my friends and compatriots and other people post. But in all honesty, I don't know, since the place has totally turned to shit, I have no emotional connection to any of the trolls anymore. Not that I really did, but I certainly don't now. It's kind of great. You know what I mean? There's a difference between like, I'm not going to let this bother me, and this really, I don't even know why they think, right? So, why they think this would actually bug me. It's very stupid. This is kind of fun to watch them kind of flail and freak out. Obviously, let's see. And oh, by the way, the brainworm is not the worst RFK Jr. news today. I know what you're thinking. How is that? How's that possible? Well, it just so happens that RFK Jr. hired a dude who was there on Jan 6 to be his, I guess, one of his digital outreach people. Like, seriously, is this just this is less a presidential campaign and more like an act of legacy murder. Like you're just trying to fuck up your last name once and for all. Because Jesus Christ. Zach Henry, a right-wing influencer, now working for Kennedy's campaign. That's him. He was at the Capitol on Jan 6. He's a pro-Jan 6er. Yeah. And he's now the outreach person. By the way, remind me again how RFK Jr. is aiming to and will take votes from Biden when he's running primarily as an anti-vaxxer and a non-interventionist. And two things which he obviously believes until he doesn't believe it. That's another, what his actual standards are is another thing entirely. But, um, tell me that he's taking votes from Biden. Meanwhile, he's hiring these assholes to go after what do you think the mailing list this guy has is? You think there's more Biden voters or Trump voters on this guy's mailing list? Anybody? All right. Yeah. So good times. That said, there was also another aspect of this. This is pretty hilarious. Okay, so remember Foxconn? You guys remember Foxconn? Ugh, I love this.
The facility in
Racine. Hold on. Open this up, you bastards. All right, I'm gonna roll this back. So remember the Trump Foxconn con? I was about to say promise, but yeah. So Trump was going to move Foxconn, which is a Taiwanese company, to Wisconsin, open up a factory there. And it, surprise, surprise, never happened. Well, it turns out that Biden is heading there to Wisconsin, and he is he's going to be talking about the fact. Hold on, get back up here.
Same land.
You're ratty. There you go. Biden is going up there to talk about how Foxconn never happened, but a new AI facility from Microsoft is happening in Wisconsin. American company, American state, American workers, etc., etc., etc. So here we go.
The president is set to visit Wisconsin today to announce plans by Microsoft to invest $3.3 billion in a high-tech data center. The facility in Racine County will be built on the same land where Foxconn had once planned to construct a 10.
I'm allowed, right? I'm allowed. I mean, mwah. Well done. Well played, Biden and Microsoft. Well, hilarious. No wonder they hate Bill Gates, even though he doesn't work there anymore.
$1 billion factory. As the Journal points out, Jim, former President Trump once called that the eighth wonder of the world. Right. Didn't happen.
Once called, listen to the tail end of this. Once called that the eighth wonder of the world. Didn't happen, right?
That the eighth wonder of the world. Right. Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. That's probably the choicest bit of the whole thing, is the tail end of it. Didn't happen.
Called that the eighth wonder of the world. Right. Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. So, anyways, big facility opening up in Wisconsin and Racine. Good for Wisconsin, good for jobs, high-tech jobs, smart, long-term jobs. Education-based jobs is a good thing for Wisconsin. It's great. And it's on the land that the Foxconn thing that never happened was going to be on. Oh, it's just good. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I posted this at Ass in the Morning because the cats woke me up. But that's me and Stormy Daniels when I hosted the Fiduci Awards, where Trump won for being a complete financial fraud. We did this in 2019. Was my hair ever so short? Was I ever so pale? I think that's a filter, but it's okay. There are a bunch of pictures of her just smiling, but I thought that would work out particularly well, considering what's going on. Yeah, she's lovely in person. She's very nice. She's super normal. I'm I think I'm one of the few men in the world with a high sex drive that has a bit in its mouth and can control it. So, it doesn't even occur to me to be skeevy, right? You know what I mean? I don't know, she just met her like a person. She seemed lovely. We had a great conversation. And, right? The fact that she's an adult film actress or that she's tied up in this thing is kind of immaterial to the conversation that happened. It was just kind of like, hey, how's it going? She's very nice, very smart, very cool. Yeah. I'm handsome and oh, thank you. I'll start wearing a tie on the show. The other thing too is that I suppose there's going to be something along the lines of Trump going to jail, and so the story is, here's Aaron Rupar. He has one of the Trumpies on.
The judge
Hold on.
to put
Hold
him
on.
in.
This is there's this generalized thought that Trump's like, yeah, throw me in jail, coppa, yeah, until it happens and it's a fucking dud and it's just he's miserable during the day, which would be he's going straight to the Tombs tonight, straight from there, and he's not going out his little normal door to talk to the press. He just goes out another door, stays in jail overnight, and then he's there the next morning, and that's that. And he never leaves the building because he's in the actual jail there at the courthouse. He's staying overnight. And people can camp out all they fucking want, but there's not going to be a picture of it. Yeah. Who cares? I mean, he could get, again, they could put him in a cell and make him watch the proceedings with a video feed. Just saying. Fuck him. But there's this idea that he's like defiant. And he's got one of his marzipan Botox spokespeople out going, yeah, he totally doesn't mind going to jail.
I get the impression that Mr. Trump will rather like the judge to put him in prison because
Sure, yeah.
the reaction against that would be very significant. What do you say?
Well, certainly that would be a travesty of justice to watch the former president of the United States
You mean a citizen equal to all other citizens?
be incarcerated when he has never committed a crime. There would be an
Well, no, contempt of court is a jailable offense. It's not technically incarcerated. I mean, he's arrested and held, but not incarcerated. There's a different. I mean, these words actually mean something.
uproar across this
Yes, they
country
would.
if that
Nah. There'd be a lot of right-wing media talking about it, but it would come and go, I gotta tell you. The first time it happened, and then the second time it happened, come and go. And then, like, he'd have to spend, like, 3 days in jail for there to be some sort of, like, oh my God, he's still in jail? Sorry if the video is low.
that were to happen. But as President Trump has said, the Constitution comes first. They are violating his
They're violating?
First Amendment right to even speak about this case with
No, they're not.
the unconstitutional gag order, and he's fighting it every step of the way.
Oh, by the way, there are people in charge of going on television and saying it's unconstitutional so he can cite that on Fox Business they were talking about it today, that it was unconstitutional. That's how it works. I guess is it that easy? I'm serious. I'm very curious. Is it, kids? Is it that fucking easy that you could just go, all right, I want to say something is wrong, so I'll have somebody I know go on and say it's wrong, even though it's not wrong, and I will quote them saying it's wrong, even though I sent them there to say something was wrong. Right? Weird? All right. Trump is the perfect diet. It'll make you lose your appetite. That's entirely possible. He is, I will say, gross. That is clearly true. Now, we obviously have, hold on, I want to bring up this other bit of story today, get my ducks in a row for the, because the attackums have finally reached Ukraine. So I'm going to be talking about that with Phil when we get in there. But overall, today is obviously a day off from court, and a lot of what's being, referenced in the last little bit are like two elements of, a little bit of what's happening around Gaza, because the IDF has moved into Rafah, but so far it's really just claiming like land and space. There haven't been, thank God, a tremendous amount of fatalities at all. That's, again, we'll see how this plays out. It's always hard to, fog of war being what it is. Actual numbers are always a question. But there was a strike we'll talk about this with Phil too. There was a strike in Kharkiv that hit, that killed some families, and there's zero protests on the streets of the American cities about this, but we'll get to that. Now, what I really want to talk about though, and there's a big anti-Semitism hearing that's going on. We'll cover some of what's said later on in the afternoon show. So good. Just the flip out. It's so nice. It's so nice. It's the laundress mats. It's the laundress mats. But right now, obviously the biggest thing I have to deal with the show, and you guys know this more than anybody else, is how the Chinese absolutely own Joe Biden. They bribed him and they're blackmailing his son with pictures. I guess the Chinese, I don't know if this is true, but apparently the Chinese are threatening to release pictures of Hunter Biden in a vest and with his shorts pulled up to look like a diaper, smoking a cigarette with sunglasses on. And I think there's even a picture of him smoking in a bathtub covering his nipples. It's hideous. And if those pictures ever get out, it's over. Yeah, impeach China Joe. That's right. China. Right. So obviously the news today is very difficult for me to deal with because I got a quick question. What why real quick, why would the Chinese bribe Joe Biden to put barriers up to Chinese vehicles, steel, and other goods to protect American manufacturing? Why would he, why wouldn't he just settle for like what Trump did, which is tariffs, effectively a foreign government giving you a payoff so you can buy farmers' votes in the Midwest, and still give them everything they need, right? And then just kind of, while you're working on the deal, tell them that, I guess, the COVID will go away in the spring when the sun comes out. President Biden has proposed new barriers to Chinese electric vehicles, steel, and other goods that could undermine his manufacturing agenda. By the way, the Chinese electric vehicles that they're talking about are Chinese vehicles that are made, American vehicles or foreign vehicles that are made, that are now owned, like MG and a couple other companies, Volkswagen, owned by the Chinese now and made in factories in Mexico, sold as if they are not Chinese vehicles. And so Biden has put new barriers on point of origin rules about what's being made in Mexico specifically. Mexico gets to benefit from NAFTA/USMCA. China does not. You don't get to get around. You don't get to get pay Trump $17 million to scuttle TPP, and then find a workaround by building factories in Mexico and then pretending that they're Mexican factories for real. That doesn't work that way. This one's funny. China's dominant in green energy. Here's why that raises concerns for the U.S. It doesn't. All right. There's a big reason, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Shiny. Get back in here. There is a couple of things. The IEA has a relatively new report that came out. Hold on, I'll show you this. And first of all, Chinese electric vehicles and their green technology has nothing to do with us or the rest of the world. It is literally due entirely to the fact that China does not have any oil. They have coal, which gives all their people respiratory illnesses, so they'd rather not use it. And if they could switch to nuclear and I suppose some other variants of renewables and tidal power and geothermal, whatever, and they could stop bringing in oil, which they have none of, to power everything, that will free them from having to be reliant on the rest of the world. 80 to 85% of their energy comes from outside the country, even with the coal use they have, which is fucking crazy. As is true, of the foodstuffs as well. Yes, the smog in China is terrible. Now, here's one of the things. China's economy is taking a giant shit. And in no small part because Biden is, if your enemy is on the ground, you don't have to keep kicking them, and you certainly don't have to help them up, I think is the situation that we're in. And there is a huge slowdown in the Chinese economy. It is the era of speedy growth. The China bubble has popped. Let's just put it that way. I'm just going to call it. The Chinese growth especially from like 2003 till about 2020 specifically, probably would have lasted till 2025, but it's over now. It popped. It's done. There's no way back. Yeah, we hit peak China both in demographics and in economics, probably in 2017, but they, tried to, kept priming the pump, but it wasn't going anywhere. Okay. What happens though when China, that is using all of that oil, stops using all of that oil for two reasons? One, they're switched to renewables, so they don't have to rely on outside energy sources as much because they can't afford it, and they'd rather make it in country, because that's the one thing you can do with allegedly a communist system, is that you can hire a guy to dig a hole and hire another guy to fill it back in. And so if you've got, tech and sites that produce energy for whatever reason, you can put people to work doing that. And you have one of the most grotesque modern phrases, human resources, untapped potential, people as oil. So what happens when Russia, so Russia's going to be part of that too. What happens when China slows down? They stop using as much oil. They stop buying as much oil, right? What happens to the price of oil when that happens? Does it go up or does it go down? When less people are using oil, both because they can't afford it and they don't have the need for it because they're not going anywhere or doing anything, right? Glutton the price. There you go. Richard's on it. Way to go, Richard. If I may, IEA, China slowdown will lead to global oil glut in 2025. It's already happening. One of the other reasons why Russia wanted to trigger destabilizing forces in the Middle East was to drive the price of oil up, because it's one of the only things they can do. They can't get around the sanctions, but if they drive the entire rate of it up, maybe people, because it's too expensive everywhere else because of war, they can, people will come to them for the cheaper version of it and they'll be able to break even. That's the goal. So one of the reasons they tipped or ran off to trigger, the October 7th attack through their proxies, one of the reasons they did that was because they need a distraction from Ukraine so that they could, the rest of the media and the Western world would follow it like a laser pointer. And then the other reason is, of course, because it drives up the price of oil. And they have to hit somewhere in the order of $55 a barrel to break even. And right now they're selling it at, I want to say 40 something. Not good. Okay. If China stops buying oil and there's excess oil because China's not buying it, so it's got to go somewhere, it'll get sold. But remember what happened in 2020, the greatest example of like oversupply and lack of demand we've seen in modern history. There's a new version of that happening. So now it gets even better. Hold on right there. This is, let's see. Let's see. Okay, so Saudi Arabia is running a fiscal deficit right now. And so normally Saudi Arabia has to sell, break even on 2022 by account. This is okay. Let me try to bring this up. Yeah. So this is a pretty good example. All right. Oil is about $82 a barrel right now. Brent crude is, not WTI. WTI is in the 70s, 79 or something, and it's on its way back down. This is the break-even price. Saudi Arabia needs a fiscal break-even oil price ranging between $80 and $88 a barrel, based on estimates of the International Monetary Fund, the Institute of International Finance, and Goldman Sachs. All of these estimates exclude spending from the Public Investment Fund, which currently owns 8% of Aramco, the main source of government revenue. Now, Aramco, the Saudi Arabian oil company that, when Trump says drill, baby, drill, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, because all of our companies that drill oil are private. So we make some money off the leases and we make some money, off of a cheaper price for the availability of it, but it's not our oil per se, unless you live in Alaska and you get a fucking stipend from it. But let me see if I can, I know it's got to be in here somewhere. Let's see. Where are you searching for the thing to look for? Search. There we go. Let's see this. It's the July 8th. Trying to find the most recent article about Saudi Arabia and Aramco that I read a little bit ago. My notes are all crazy. I think it was on Bloomberg, so I'll find it there. But the fascinating part is right now, because of the debt that Saudi Arabia has, their cost, their price per barrel to their break-even price is closer to $108 a barrel, which is, again, almost $30 higher than it is right now, and almost $30 higher than they say they need it to be. Let's see. I'll find this one directly so I can show you the article in that regard. But it's a fascinating aspect of if you're looking at like think of all the people that everybody tells you on the right are doing great and we suck. America's doing terrible, but all these other countries are doing great. Now, again, everything being relative, right? We are all, the world is coming out of this pandemic, right? And so the idea that we should somehow not have any problems or not have the problems we had before the pandemic is absurd. But even still, the fact that we're doing as well as we are with these things is kind of amazing. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is in deep doo-doo. So Aramco just gave the biggest payout, I guess, to the Saudi government insofar as taxes. Like it lost money, but it had it's very weird. It lost money last year, but it paid more in taxes this year because they're trying to make up for the deficit, because it is it's a piggy bank company. So this is okay. We'll get this. Where are you, you silly thing? Yeah. Yeah, here you go. So this is, here you go. Oil erases losses. Hold on, this is back and forth. This is this is fairly fresh. So it's been back and forth over there because everybody's talking about this loss that's coming, but it's not here yet because of the futures is what they're chasing. WTI futures earlier touched the lowest level since March. Oil has been on a downward trend as geopolitical tensions cool. Again, this is not about the availability of oil in the world. It is about the Red Sea and the ability to transport oil and naphtha and all the stuff that we use to make plastics. There's a glut of Chinese plastic right now because they're not having the one thing that Russia can get around the sanctions are, as far as petroleum goods, is naphtha and the plasticizing agents that come from petroleum. Oil erased earlier losses after government data showed a decline in U.S. stockpiles, signaling a tighter physical market. West Texas Intermediate crude traded above 78 a barrel as crude oil inventories fell by 1.36 million barrels, according to the Energy Information Administration, the EIA. The pop shows that traders are taking the news as first bullish indicator amongst a sea of bearish technicals. Bearish technicals meaning that it's headed in a softening direction because of China, but they're bullish in the short term. This is the 2023's peak of, there you go. Oil sinks to mid-March lows. The oil market shows signs of softening as U.S. stockpiles grow. This is the price, because when our stockpiles were low, price goes high. When the stockpiles get higher, the price goes lower. It's 77.64. Literally, the top of this article is out of date already from what we read. An American Petroleum Institute estimate on Tuesday had predicted U.S. stockpile gains, according to people familiar with the matter. The crude oil storage numbers countered the API's steep build, which is tripping some blah, blah, blah. This is just like the weird news about it. But I want to see if they have, yeah, there we go. Aramco keeps $31 billion payout amid Saudi budget deficit. So Aramco, the Saudi wealth fund related oil company that they own, That's both the yeah, it's hard because they're a fucking monarchy. So what does it mean? But it's the state oil company of Saudi Arabia. Is paying $31 billion in taxes and to the country, even though it didn't make it. The generous payouts are crucial for the kingdom's economy. OPEC Plus is seen extending oil output curbs in its next meeting. The curbs are to keep the price up. Demand is coming down, so you tighten how much is out there, right? Okay. Aramco kept its $31 billion dividend payout to the Saudi government and other investors despite lower profit, a boon for the kingdom's economy as it struggles with a budget deficit. Now, how many people out there think that the Chip Roys and the MTGs and even the Donald Trumps of the world think of Saudi Arabia and think of budget deficit? Just let those words bounce around in your fucking head for a second. Yeah. The generous payouts for the world's biggest oil exporter are becoming increasingly important for the Gulf state as crude prices remain below the levels it needs to balance its budget. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is pursuing expensive adventures such as a futuristic project of Neom, which is it's a good name to have right as Kristi Noem is I guess called out for being a dog killer. So what is this, the dog killing town? I don't know. It's you reverse those letters and you've got her name. It's just bad timing, I think, more than anything. Yeah. Making a big bet on tourism. I'm not going back to Saudi Arabia. What they're counting on is that Muslims have to make a pilgrimage. So they're just planning on milking Muslims for the rest of their lives to keep and they don't want this been there, done that with Mecca and Medina, which is where they are with it. Yeah. And seeking stakes in sporting leagues, he's tried to transform the economy. Again, golf is not a sport, but we'll get there later. Aramco had said that the distributions, including a special component, will be higher this year than in 2023, which will help fund some of the kingdom's vast spending plans. Global oil majors such as Shell, PLC, and BPPLC have also kept their focus on returning cash to shareholders because they want to keep people in the stocks and not moving out. The kingdom needs around $108 a barrel to balance the budget. What was their break-even price? Break-even, $88, $80 to $88 a barrel. Just to zero out the cost of a barrel of oil, they got to make 80 to 88. That's what the Saudis have to sell a barrel of oil for. $80 to $88 because of their lavish lifestyle and all this other shit. And on top of that, they have to sell it for $108 a barrel to balance their budget. And there's going to be a glut next year. Just telling you. Yep, time for solar. Absolutely. If you want to choke off these motherfuckers and their ridiculous control over more of the world economy than they deserve, that's not based on effort, skill, development, intellectual growth, invention, all the things that make us human instead of being fucking ants or bees. I collected all this pollen and I have the pollen now. If you want it, you have to pay me what I'm worth. You got to rub your stinger up again. I don't know where that analogy is going, but you know what I'm talking about. God damn it. According to Bloomberg Economics benchmark, crude prices in London were trading at $83 a barrel on Tuesday. Already delayed some projects that were part of its economic transformation plan past 2030 and scale back its ambitions for Neom. That's the line, the line city or whatever. Its economy has contracted for 3 quarters straight, while the budget has been in deficit for 6 consecutive quarters. Aramco's net income fell 14% to $27.3 billion in the first quarter compared with a year earlier, according to a statement Tuesday. Its free cash flow, cash from operations minus capital expenditure, of $22.8 billion in the period was less than the total dividend payout. The shares were little changed in Riyadh because you can't get out. I got to tell you, I used to hate financial discussions in the news until they got this fucking juicy. What I'm trying to tell you is Saudi Arabia is already cash poor they're fucked. They're operating in a deficit, and they think they're going to fix their, hey, we're a huge oil-rich country, and everybody's leaving oil and getting out of it, but we'll replace it with how much everybody wants to come and visit Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry, you're not going to be the Paris of the Middle East, and your fucking weird human trafficking hotels and all that kind of shit might be great for the like Russian oligarchs, traveling around, but it's not enough to keep that place afloat the way it has been all this time. Bye-bye. Welcome to the world of having to prove your worth to the rest of the world through work and invention. What was that? You had a sandbox in your backyard. I love when Hal is sorry. I love when Hal asks right when he knows he is. Thanks. Thank you for spotting that. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, and there's this other. Where's this other one? This is kind of sweet on the Bloomberg side of things. So, what do you think Saudi Arabia's, they were planning on this partnership with Russia and China. Remember that? Remember? Hey, we love, we're playing both sides of the fence. We don't really have a problem here or whatever. Now, neither of these assholes can be in the SWIFT system if Russia's not and China won't be if they attack Taiwan. And if they're going to go that direction, then fuck, I don't know. We'll be BRICS plus, but we'll kind of hang out. It'll be sweet. And remember that talk last year? Dang, Hal, you're making me feel better this morning. That's what I do. That is what I do. That's what I'm here for. Right. Remember when, we're in, oh shit, Saudi Arabia is going to cozy up to, hold on, let me see if I can open this. There you go. In the future, Saudi Arabia is looking at China as their technological partner. Not so fucking fast. Apparently, Joe Biden's attitude towards China and China's penchant for stealing everybody's shit is not only unpopular in the United States, and increasingly it's unpopular everywhere. Saudi Arabia's $100 billion AI fund will divest China if U.S. asks. The $100 billion Saudi investment fund says U.S. is top partner. That's my favorite part of this. There you go. Saudi Arabia's $100 billion AI fund says U.S. is number one partner, which sounds like it's said with a Chinese accent. It's very strange. The U.S. is the number one partner for us and the number one market for AI, chips, and semiconductor industry. Yeah, we know. Amit Midha, the head of Saudi Arabia's new investment fund for semiconductor and artificial intelligence technology, AIAT, that looks like a lowercase L. I'm just telling you. Discusses his strategy, speaks with Bloomberg on the sidelines of the Milken Institute Global Conference in California. Where's California? Is that near Shanghai? No. I will say that I believe it's close to San Francisco, though, and San Francisco has its own Chinese name, as you'll recall. So I gotta say, all the Biden is owned by China folks are really sweating it. They really are. And you'll notice that whole conversation has just fucking tapered. They'll jump into it. It's almost like muscle memory, right? Hal is demonstrating what true patriotism looks like. Abso-fucking-lutely I am. America rocks. You know why? You know what the best thing about America is? It doesn't show up on anybody's 23andMe. Anybody can be one. You just got to come here and contribute and believe in the idea that everybody's vote counts and everybody's voice counts, and you can make it on your own, and we'll be there if you fall through the cracks too heavily, but there's a striving potential, all that stuff. I'm for it. Beats the living shit out of the Saudis. Are like, we've got all this shit under our feet. What the fuck do we have to do? It is designed to evolve. I agree. These other countries are not. So I'm just saying. Yes, don't forget opportunity. Exactly. So I would never forget opportunity. It's the name of the game, baby. This is like, you know how everybody tiptoed around China during Trump and everybody was trying to be nice about how they said stuff and they didn't want to rock the boat and all that. Remember that? And there was a bunch of wolf warrior diplomacy shit happening, rolling from Trump into Biden. Remember all that? And they were just like dicks at the first meeting and everybody's like, all right, be an asshole. See you later. And then we just started pulling shit out. And they're like, wait. We didn't mean to be an asshole. Now, check this out. This is the head of Saudi Arabia's new investment fund for semiconductor and artificial intelligence technology said the country would divest from China if it were asked to do so by the U.S. So far, the requests have been to keep manufacturing and supply chains completely separate. But if the partnerships with China would become a problem for the U.S., we will divest. Amit Midya, the chief executive officer of Al-At, an investment firm backed by $100 billion in capital from the Public Investment Fund. By the way, hey, you could argue that that's Joe Biden's $100 billion investment fund into American AI stuff. Just saying, fuck you, Jared Kushner, and your pissy little $3 billion golf money bullshit. Go build some dumbass buildings in places no American wants to visit because you can't bring your gay friend, and if and your wife or girlfriend or mom or sister or daughter has to go outside with her fucking head covered. Bye-bye. No. Go build buildings there, dumbass. We need buildings here, but go build them there. Why did I punch down on homeless people in Seattle? This behavior totally out of care. Why am I punching down on homeless people in Seattle? When did that happen? Also, yeah. Seriously. Also, what makes someone homeless? Yesterday's chat, I see. Yeah, I wasn't talking about, specifically not talking about Seattle. I was talking about the Chop and the Chaz in one point, like 2 days ago. But I was talking, she was a troll? I don't think so. I think she's mean, it was a meaningful conversation. It's okay. Here's my issue with homelessness. And this is as far as its discussion. Because it is a problem we should solve. Yes? Agreed. We all agree we do not want people to be homeless. If they don't want a home, that's not homeless. But if they do want a home and they can't have one, or they got problems, we would like to fix that for those people. Yes? Okay. Here's the issue with homelessness in our country. The homeless are not a tribe, and they're not all homeless or without a home or not living in a house or an apartment for the same reason. We agree on that. Yes? We agree that there are some people who, through, medical bills and other shit, they fell through the cracks and they've got family expenses and that kind of stuff, and they become homeless. And the system for getting them back in a home would be different than someone who has a drug or alcohol problem, who's looking to get back on their feet. Right? Yes, homeless is a plight, not a people. Exactly. And talking about them like a tribe, it denigrates them as human beings, I think. And then there are groups of people, an increasingly large number of people on the West Coast mostly. And this is why Texas and other states dump their drug addicts and their homeless in California, because it's much easier to survive the winter out here. That get a check from, the biggest one is San Francisco. San Francisco hands out, I think $650 a month to people, and they don't have to be sheltered. Therefore, they can live on that money, and they're basically just boosting whatever they need to make up the difference. And they can live in the Tenderloin. And the problem with that is, with the rush of fentanyl into the system, you're seeing what's effectively a drug purge. These people are dying at a higher rate because the government themselves, they said they were drug addict freaks living on government handouts. I did not say that they were drug addicted freaks living on government handouts. I'm saying what I'm actually saying, which is certain cities, in an attempt to try and fix a broad problem with a narrow solution, namely handing out a specific money blindly to whoever without any treatment solutions and other stuff have led to an increase in fentanyl deaths, specifically in places like San Francisco. In California, that's the one problem we have, is that solution comes with that death rate. Does that make sense? You can't treat the whole homeless issue and every variant of humanity that's in there with a one-size-fits-all solution. So, does that make sense? That is, by the way, and will always be my complaint about this conversation. That one of the ways that it is dehumanizing to talk about people who live on the street as if they're all there for the same reason, that they're all equally unable to be helped or equally able to be helped in a broad swath. Right? And again, if you want to solve it, you have to talk to the actual problem, not go. I wouldn't look at every person who's living on the streets as a drug addict, right? And you wouldn't like. Do you think every person who's on the street, living on the street, needs rehab? No. There are those that do. There are some, I would argue, that need to be institutionalized, that cannot care for themselves. It is way beyond the fact that we will get them into rehab and help them straighten their life out, where they will again become, a loving human being who's capable of living amongst other people. There are those people, and those are the people we should focus on specifically in the rehab area. But there are some people, and you know exactly who I'm talking about, and especially in places like San Francisco and in Los Angeles and areas that are, what's an institution? I mean, a mental institution, effectively, an institution that will care for them because they can no longer care for themselves. And it is not just and good to let someone who is mentally incapable of taking care of themselves live on the street until they're hit by a car. A hand up isn't a handout either. I agree. I think a hand up should be the purpose of it. Right? And those folks who genuinely need help, they are, we're talking about schizophrenics. We're talking about people who have, maybe you could medicate them to some level of normalcy where they're maybe not violent or something like that, or they're able to articulate some of their thoughts, but it's a long road, and you're not going to do it with outpatient therapy. Or halfway houses for people who can't manage their day-to-day lives on their own. Yeah, there's a myriad of solutions, Hinda, and that's the good part. That's what I'm saying. It is a multifaceted problem, not a tribe. Yes, Tracy, you're absolutely right. I worked in a homeless shelter for many years. It's a difficult problem to solve. You are absolutely right. The main mission is that, was started by Masons in Los Angeles, and we all volunteer there at some point or another, and we've all been through there. We've all seen what the system is, and how it's set up. Buy up old city rail yards and have them move out of the city, use the land for safe homeless structures. The problem is that in those situations, the homeless, again, what you're talking about is just creating a sideline drug den for the unsalvageable. Have them live outside of town in it's like California City. I don't know if you guys have ever seen California City. Oh, wait, Phil's going to be here in a second. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. Let me get Phil in here, and he's going to be in the control room, and I got to go jump in here and this thing and try to come in here, and then I'll grab this link, and he'll be with us in just a moment, and I think he will be able to hear us, but we shall see what we shall see. Copying that, and but again, you're never going to solve a problem if you oversimplify it, especially one that is as complex as homelessness. Because again, even Carlin's bit about it's not homelessness, it's houselessness. These people don't need a home is an abstract concept. A house is a tangible structure, right? That in and of itself is, hold on, property is a little bit, yep, controlling there, okay. it's crucial. And Phil is waiting in the background. I think he can hear me. I will be able to hear him as soon as I bring him on. But ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Philip Ittner. There he is. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. There you are. Excellent.
Good.
I was
Great.
we
I
were
don't
just
see you.
You don't see me. Oh, sorry. Yes, I will.
That's okay.
3, 2, 1.
As charming as you are, and it's there we go.
I do have a great speaking voice.
Yeah.
I can, with my long hair, I can walk around anywhere. But if I start talking, everybody's like, "Oh my God, Mr. Davenport!" So, it's another thing. So,
The sausage king of
yeah, right, the sausage king of Chicago. Yeah, that's a totally different myth about me. It's true, but still.
Who was that? What was the name that he
Abe
used
Froman.
for the sausage? Abe Froman. Yes.
Abe Froman.
Yes.
Entre-nous.
Fantastic.
Take the kids back to the playground. Yeah, or I will be forced to get snooty, snotty. Yeah. Welcome. Good to see you. How are you? It is. It's fantastic. And it's partly based on me. True story.
Yeah, I'm okay. I just I'm congested. But shit
That happens.
That's
Right.
okay. That's okay. We got pelted overnight.
Right.
Last night. I slept through it.
Okay.
Because as usual, they strike in the mid to kind of early morning hours. So
Right.
3 to 6 is when they generally kind of pelt us when they do heavy assaults. And so it's done on purpose. It's meant to strike while you're sleeping or to jar you awake.
Sure.
Or to get you in your sleep. But I slept right through it. They hit.
It's like
Odessa,
earthquakes, and it's like earthquakes in California.
Yeah,
it
really
after
is.
a while, you just kind of adapt to it. Everybody else, there are what I would call the 3 stages of earthquakes in living in California. The first is, dear God, what was that slight titter? The world is coming to an end. This is what Armageddon's going to feel like. It's a 3.3. I've got to go lay under that, like under a tree, and hope it falls on me and kills me quickly. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is, did you feel that? I don't know if I felt that. I don't really. Did you feel it last night? I think I felt it. I'm not sure if I felt it. I think I felt it. And then the third one is, I can't wait for the next earthquake because I'm looking to buy a house and it'll scare out all the suckers. I'm going to look for one with cracks in the walls. I'll get it on the cheap.
Anything short of a 4.5.
Yeah, it's a snooze button. Just like back to bed. Right.
I got a great story that I won't tell right now because it's a little bit long, but basically it involves like Midwesterners coming to the Bay. And being like,
why is it freezing?
Completely. Yeah, you have hurricane. You have tornadoes. You live in Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
But earthquakes, yeah. So anyway, you're right. It is kind of like that when it comes to the Russian air assaults. It's gotten to the point where it's just a factor of life.
Yeah.
Sadly, it shouldn't be that way, but it is. As I said, Odessa got whacked. Lviv got whacked. Kharkiv got whacked. Kharkiv is gonna be bad. I've got people that are there. They're reporting back to me on a regular basis, and I'm in communication with them. They're talking to the locals who are there, and amazingly, they're not evacuating the city, even though there is an approximate 50,000 man force just on the other side of the border. The Russians have been massing near Belgorod, and it is estimated at somewhere around 50K. They cannot take the city, so I don't know what their intent is.
Right.
The speculation, apparently, and again, this is coming from people who are on the ground there, is that they want to draw Ukrainian defensive forces away from a town called Chasiv Yar, in Donbass, because that is the trophy that they would like to present to Vladimir Putin
Tomorrow?
on, on the 9th, which ain't going to happen.
No.
Um, but they cannot. They physically don't have the capacity to take Kharkiv. Kharkiv is, and we've discussed this, but
Right.
I'll repeat it. Kharkiv is a town of approximately 1.5, somewhere between 1.3 and 1.7. So I split the difference to go with 1.5 million people. And apparently they are not evacuating. So they are actually physically there. But even if they were to evacuate, the city is built for a population of 1.5, which means it's an urban center, which means it is potentially a killing field. It is it's a fortress,
Right.
and it is a fortress. I've been to Kharkiv
Yeah.
many times, and it is absolutely 100% a fortress. And not to get too inside baseball on all this stuff, but I equate Kharkiv with a kind of a Pittsburgh attitude or a Detroit attitude.
Right.
It is a steel town. It is industrial. It is rebar. It is, you don't fuck with these kind of people. These people are built for punishment. They're built for punishment. They have that mentality of like, we work in factory with molten steel.
Right.
You think you're going to scare us? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Is their attitude. And it's incredibly admirable, but it's different. Look, every city is a little bit different in Ukraine, which is one of the reasons I love this country so much, because there is such individuality and uniqueness for every little place that you go within the country. Lviv is very cafe culture and coffee and sitting around and street musicians and art, and it's very bohemian.
Fucking Portland. Hashtag rip Portland.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
There's a Portland vibe to Lviv. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Or like a Greenwich Village kind of. Anyhow, very hippie, very kind of like up its own. Well, it's San Francisco. Why am I?
Yeah.
My own hometown.
That's right.
Odessa. Odessa is a seaside town. It is a port city. It is the world comes to us because we are this beautiful gem on the Black Sea, and we party and we have beach parties and nightclubs, and fuck you for trying to take away our simple pleasures, our physical, like we get sun and sea and food, and like life is good here. Fuck you. Zaporizhia is got the legacy of the Cossacks, and so Kharkiv has this attitude of a Pittsburgh or a Detroit, of this like, we work with molten steel, we're not going to be afraid of you, and they're bracing themselves for whatever the Russians have planned for them, because you don't amass 50,000 man force on your doorstep and then not do something with it. But it's going to be failed. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so is it actually Kharkiv that they want, or is it Chasiv Yar that they want? And they think by attacking Kharkiv you can diminish the defenses around Chasiv Yar. We'll have to see. I mean, they're up to something.
Yeah.
So we had the inauguration of Putin for his 5th term.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. I saw
yesterday.
Steven Seagal was there. It was very exciting. He's like the Kid Rock of Ted Nugent's. I don't know. It's so fucking sad. You know what occurred to me? I got to tell you. You know how you hear this bullshit about like either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain or whatever? That's bullshit. What it is that you either die a hero or live long enough for people to realize you were the villain. And in some cases. So there are people who are like, I was on your side, I'm on your side, I'm on your side, and they die before you get to find out that they were actually against you, is the theory. And in his case, like looking back on the movies that I liked of his, Under Siege, Above the Law specifically, that was his first one. Mark for Death was it was the one with the lady from the shampoo commercial, Don't Hate Me Because I'm Beautiful. But all of his movies are about Kelly LeBrock, that's right. all of the movies are about how the U.S. government is totally corrupt. And the only thing pushing back on it is rare individuals who just happen to be able to kill people and step outside the law.
Yes.
Which is,
And
I
who
mean,
don't follow any rules, which
right.
is this kind of maverick
It's so fucked up.
rogue.
Like the
fucked
more
up
I think
trope.
about it, I'm like, this motherfucker has been telling this story his whole goddamn career.
Yeah.
Again,
Even you know what's you're right. He has. You know what's also interesting is what is considered the archetype of this is either the Clint Eastwood character from the Dirty Harry series, or Richard Branson in the Death Wish series.
Charles Bronson.
Both,
Richard Branson was
I'm sorry,
not in.
what did I
yes,
say?
Richard Branson was not in Death Wish, although I would totally watch that movie. AI, get on that.
Totally
that would be
watch that
fucking
movie.
glorious.
That would be a great movie to watch.
It would be hilarious.
Yes, Charlie Bronson.
Yeah.
But if you watch both of those series, it's actually it's not pro vigilantism. It's actually very critical of vigilantism.
Mm-hmm.
But because of this visceral response to the violence and like, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to pay attention to courts and laws and rules?
Right.
We could just go punish the bad guy.
Well, the first,
the archetypes were actually very dismissive of that kind of. It's the Seagal, and it's
Well, there's a myth. Okay, so I'm a big fan of those movies. One of my favorite things to bring up about the third Rambo, or the second Rambo movie. Sorry, third Rambo movie. It's the Afghanistan, where that he dedicates the movie to the valiant people of Afghanistan, and it's like it's such a weird thing for right wingers to deal with. It's hilarious. And the one that he did, basically, it was about Burma.
Did not age well.
Which one? The Afghan one?
The Afghan one does not age well.
I like it. I mean, I think.
Oh, it's a fun movie.
It's a cartoon.
Don't misunderstand me, but it's a cartoon.
Well, the interesting thing was, and this is
after we got involved in Afghanistan.
Again, how do you tell the story about some of this shit, and how do you talk about the moral gray areas of stuff and the failures of civil society and people's frustrations? How do you let people let off steam about civil society without crossing the line themselves? Which is a lot of time is seeing it play out in a movie. And in the case of Death Wish, that was a direct response to the 70s Fear City stuff that was going on in New York. It was directly related to that people felt like they were on their own, specifically in New York, and it ate the news cycle all the time. Go watch the documentary Fear City. Holy fuck, New York was crazy. Like, you ever see, I love the movie Wolfen with Gregory Hines, and he's like, it's like the tenements that are just, it looks like a war zone. The buildings that have just fallen over in New York. It's just nuts, right? So on top of that, the Cannonball Run movies and Smokey and the Bandit was a response to the 55 mile an hour speed limit, nationwide 55. That was a social response in art, and people, they wanted to laugh about it and get mad about it. So comedy and cathartic movies are one of the ways we let off steam about something while we're not sure if it's a good thing or not, right? And in the case of Dirty Harry, the first one is really about Miranda. It's about this frustration with this idea that the criminals have more rights than the citizens do. That they don't have to do any of this stuff. And by the way, and Stallone used that later as well in Cobra. When he's having this conflict with one of the other cops who's all rules all the time, and he's like, I'm saying that as long as we have to play by these kind of rules and the killer doesn't, we're gonna lose. And so that's kind of the mission statement of that ideology, right? And so interestingly enough, in the very first one, the tie line is that I know what you're thinking, punk. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Right? And he says that line to 2 people in it, if you'll recall. Opening scene, he's having a hot dog. He gets there's a bank robbery across the street, and he just walks out of the fucking place.
City lights.
Yeah.
Down in the loin.
He walks straight out, and these people are shooting as they come out. So this is their shot. He's not the first person that fires a shot or any of that shit. And he walks out, and he just and he kills one of them. And then he's shooting. He gets shot himself. in the leg. He gets like dusted by a shotgun blast, right? And then the one guy is wounded, but he's still alive, and he's got the shotgun right next to him, and he's like, I know what you're thinking, right? Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, you know, and he explains the guy. He's like, he basically bluffs the guy because he knows he's out. That's the story. That's the bit in this. That he's not just a guy who shoots. He's outsmarting him. He knows he's out, and he knows the guy will get to the shotgun before he can fire. And so he'll die, and then that guy will escape, and other people will die, and he's doing his job as a cop. So he says, make my days not till sudden impact, which is the most like pro-woman vigilante Me Too movement movie you could ever fucking see. Holy shit. Like, he covers for a woman who's murdering her rapists by letting the main guy get blamed for all the other killings at the end. Spoiler alert, but holy shit. Think about that movie's plot for a little bit. But in that movie, he goes, you know, he knows he's out. And the guy who's laying there, he goes, you know, he decides to give up, right? And then the cops show up and they're going to arrest him. And he goes, I gots to know that whole, and he goes, click, because he knows he's out. And the guy's pissed off or whatever. And it's this like, see, day drinking. All right. And then he says it again. And by the way, that actor, I'm blitzing on his name right now, but that actor is in all the Dirty Harry movies. He's his best friend, Horace, in Sudden Impact. He plays a different role in each movie. He always hires that actor to play a different role. He brought people back and put them. He's also in the movie Play Misty for Me. He used that guy a lot. It was great. Yeah. And interestingly enough, they knew there would be an issue, I think, with the racism probability of it or whatever, because it's a black criminal in the beginning. But his doctor's black. Right after he goes to get treated, right? And he goes to because he's been shot, he has to go to the hospital. His doctor's black. And his doctor asks how his wife is doing. His wife is dead. She just died not too long ago, and the guy forgot. So they're close, but they're not that close, but they're close enough to talk about family and that kind of stuff, right? And then at the very end, he says the same thing to the bad guy, the serial killer who steals children in a truck and blah, blah, blah. And then that guy, though, goes for it, and he's not out.
Yeah.
In that moment, he's over. Okay. So that was a social response to Miranda. Magnum Force is a rebuttal to the first Dirty Harry movie, which is these cops decide to take the law into their own hands. They kill people. Yeah. Magnum Force is people who like what he does, but don't understand he stays within the law. And they take it too far. And so it's a rebuttal of the idea that people took away from the first movie. It's fucking fascinating. You know, how
the whole genre. But I mean, you know, to bring it back to Seagal in Moscow, is that this kind of does this entire
plays into his storyline, into the America's government. American government is bad and always will be.
It's bad because it's sloppy and it's difficult and it's all these stupid rules and laws, and you know, it's just, you know, it's just animalistic violence, and brutality is
the only answer.
All you're doing is painting it up with your laws and and that's kind of a Russian mentality. That is,
he's always been doing that.
Criticism of us.
Yes,
and Russia's criticism of us is that we're full of BS, that we paint up, that at least they have the decency not to put window dressing on their brutality. At least they're honest enough, which is bullshit. So this kind of pays in, which is bullshit. Of course, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's lazy and it's easy and it's don't expect better, because we're all just beasts. We're all just you can't expect anything better. And that kind of mentality of Seagal's work, and from everything that we know about his personal life as well, the weirdo that he is.
Yeah, he's a Scott Ritter wannabe.
It plays into this mentality. But anyhow, so as much as I could talk about Hollywood tropes all night long, I still think it's worth talking a little bit more about the inauguration about
Yeah.
Putin's address, which was just dripping with religiosity.
Right.
The whole thing was dripping with empire. Everything was in the Kremlin and the gilded halls of the
Mm-hmm.
Kremlin, and hearkening back to Russia's imperial, zenith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there was ever a doubt in your mind that Russia desires empire and that Putin sees himself as a czar, as a head
Right.
of a great imperial power, you just have to look at that ceremony. It was just disgusting, in my
Right.
opinion. In my
Yeah.
opinion, looking at it from my perspective, and certainly looking at it from Ukraine, it was like, hey, asshole, this is why we're fighting you. We don't
Meanwhile,
believe in your empire. Oh,
this.
just the worst.
Meanwhile,
This
what
guy.
in the ever loving fuck is going on with his head, in all fronts?
I know. And this is a guy I like dyeing my mustache because I like to
Sure.
differentiate between my mustache and my beard.
Sure, that's fine.
This guy takes shoe polish
I don't know what the fuck that is
to his head. I mean,
it's like he broke into a vampire store and stole
and
a
they
Bela
trot him
Lugosi
out.
costume.
Yeah,
Like
really, they
yeah.
trot him out. He's such a useful idiot for them.
He-
And
here's-
it's so like this is like 1980s. This is kind of
he
like
thinks he's
what
the
we
fucking
aspire
glimmer
to.
man. He thinks he's the
Jesus.
fucking glimmer man. It's so odd. And I gotta say,
That's
like,
crazy.
the fact that you could almost like the best thing about it, I would like to say, and let's see, I'll open this and so we can look at this stuff. The best thing about him being there is it totally just ruins Putin's ridiculous fucking clam bake.
To
It
us.
just, to
To
us.
us.
Yeah.
To us,
I mean,
to him, and to Russians, they freaking love it.
yeah, but I don't know
You
that
know?
they have a choice to love it. It's kind of like the 70 to 80%
Well,
of Palestinians supporting, Hamas or whatever. I'm like,
Well, no, but
it's a little.
there's a certain
The polling goes a
there's a
direction when you got
certain
a gun to your
perspective.
head, right?
Yeah, but I know I do genuinely think that they love a guy like Seagal because they do. Their impression of America
Right.
is kind of America of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, yeah, look at all that just gilded halls.
Yeah,
and
it's
these
ridiculous. I mean, no wonder they like
just
Trump. It's like
sycophants.
it's like they live inside a fucking birthday cake. Secondly, I gotta say, he's not a big dude. Don't
No.
have them film it in a way that makes you look even smaller. It's really weird. Like
So
he looks
true.
miniature in all of this shit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
I
everybody
know.
else, oddly enough, looks kind of normal because of the way they're shot. They're shot at eye level. But with him, they want it to be so dramatic. They either shoot up at him or down at him, and it makes him look like a fucking like one of the seven
Yeah.
dwarfs.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so bizarre. It is so
Yeah,
fucking
it
bizarre.
Well, he better enjoy it because it's probably going to be his last one.
Is that even the real Putin? Do we know? Would he dare?
Oh God, who knows?
Yeah, right.
Who
At this
knows?
point,
At this
I
point,
mean, I gotta say,
but it's
this looks a
it's
lot
not
like
going to
Mar-
happen again.
this looks
It's
like
not going to happen again. He's
Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, God, look at him. Yeah, it very much does.
How do you stand next to him
he
and try
won't
not
get
to look
another
at his
one.
head?
Oh, I know.
How do you do that?
And the conversation he has with these journalists is just
Oh yeah, that's the
Oof.
other thing. He doesn't speak Russian.
no, he doesn't.
Are you out of
He's
your
been living
fucking
there for
mind?
How long?
Oh
He
my
doesn't speak
god!
Russian.
Look, I'm big on giving people, if they come to America and it takes them a while to learn English, that's fine, but you should because it's the dominant language. And I would never move to another country and not learn the dominant language while I'm there. What kind of an asshole does that? Especially if you're like fleeing to the place and they're gonna you're living under their protection and they could
Well,
fucking
I see this. Yeah, I
Jesus.
mean, I see this with other people that have fled
Mhm.
to Russia, mostly, people who have pretty bad legal troubles in the West. And
Mhm.
they tend to flee to Russia, and then they say how wonderful Russia is and all these great things about Russia. But if you don't speak the language and you don't integrate yourself into Russia, you really actually don't really know the country
You
you
don't-
live in.
Dude, you don't
And
know
they
what
don't
they're
understand
fucking
the
saying
brutality.
around you. So, again, I've mentioned this before, but I've never heard racism in my life in person the way I have heard it in elevators in China when black people stepped into the elevator, and the people that were in the elevator didn't know I spoke Chinese.
Same,
And
I have it in Russian.
by the way,
I did the same thing in Russian.
automatically assumed that the black people didn't speak Chinese, which is again its own form of racism on top of that. Because I feel like it was shitty me listening to it. I can only imagine if one of the delegates that was with this group from Niger or whoever they were from, you know, which knew what was being said, it'd feel fucking terrible. So fuck those folks when they do that shit. And the same thing is true in Russia. The problem is, I'm just saying, if I was in Russia and I was in his position, I would want to know when they started mentioning third floor windows. You know what I mean? I would be very concerned about me outliving my fucking usefulness and what plans they had for me, because that's the kind of place where they'll send somebody, you know, someone killed Steven Seagal. That the Ukrainians sent someone and killed an American living in Russia who's got dual citizenship. They look what they did to this poor man, and you could have been standing there while they were discussing how to fucking murder you, and they know full well you don't understand a word of what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, and it's also you gotta, if you are going to be an advocate for Russia's perspective and its ideological belief about how the world should run, you probably should actually understand what that is and what that what that entails. And he doesn't.
Nope.
So I find it disingenuous. I think I think it's opportunistic. So
it's flat out dumb. It's
dumb,
dangerous.
just straight dumb.
That's the weirdest part about me. There's no fucking way I would be in North Korea and not speak Korean fluently.
Yeah. Oh, well, this gels nicely to another story that we've had break recently in the last few days, is this schmuck who was serving in Korea. I mean, an American service member.
Oh, yeah, the guy who got honeypotted? Is that what you're talking about?
And he got honeypotted by a Russian girl in Korea. In what is the region? What's the district in Seoul where is Pyeongyang? I'm gapping on it. The party district of Seoul, where all the service members go. This young man fell in with a Russian dancer girl.
Yeah.
You know, read honeypot, read prostitute.
Right.
And he started regurgitating, you know, Russian talking points about how awful the United States is. And then he apparently hopped on a plane and flew to meet her in Vladivostok, Russia's far eastern capital.
Right.
And he's been arrested for quote unquote stealing.
Yeah.
Which I would find, you know, I'd call into question immediately. But at the end of the day, what this idiot has, first off, anybody who has ever served will know that you don't just travel to Russia or actually you're not supposed to travel anywhere without, you know, checking in with your chain of command and getting clearance to travel, and especially a place like Russia. So this guy clearly was in violation of military code when he did this, and he, you know, and again he had been seduced by this whole kind of like anti-American stuff and Russian talking point stuff, and I would shrug it off and say, you know, FAFO, you know, fuck around, find out, except that now he is going to be a problem when it comes to negotiating the release of other Americans, like Evan Gershkovich, or Whelan,
the Wall Street Journal reporter,
or is it Paul Whelan? I want to say, you know, who is a former Marine and you know, has been in rotting away in a Russian prison for years now.
Right.
Now this moron has gone over there and is now going to, in any negotiation to release anybody else, is going to be, I mean, this was the criticism about releasing Griner. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to reopen that story,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's a bunch of
the
shit.
argument about Griner was like, she shouldn't have heard her in the first place, and now we're having to negotiate her release when really we should
Right.
be. I don't necessarily agree with that mentality because she got offered a job on a basketball team in Russia, and anyhow, I'm not going to rehash that. But the problem is when you go to a place like Russia and you get arrested, the ripple effect. It's not just you that gets affected by this. You have the repercussions of your because
you're
now
a
the State Department's
you're a
gonna have to, now
geopolitical
you're
poker chip now, and
That's right.
you might be responsible individually for us having to give up another arms trader or something in exchange for you. So we get you back because we value your life, and and they're not gonna, if we just trade 1-to-1 a grunt for a grunt. They don't want that. They don't give a fuck about their people. Look at how many have died in Ukraine. They want somebody big, somebody useful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So anyhow, idiot, and I have very little sympathy for him, but I'm not thrilled that he might, as a result of this, affect people who really should be getting the diplomatic efforts focused on them so that we can secure their release. So fuck that guy.
Right.
What else?
But we can't, and we got to get him. Like
no, we can't.
That's
We got to get him.
We got to get him out
that's
now.
Just the way it is.
Yep.
The way it is. I'm trying to think of what else has been happening. Oh, the assassination attempt. We could talk about that.
Right. Yeah. So that was an internal attempt on Zelensky, apparently, or that was going to happen, or they were planning. Yeah. So what's the details with that? Yes.
Apparently, well, 2 guys have been arrested. Russian nationals who can fly under the radar here because of the common language. You just throw on an accent. And they were arrested apparently with plans to kill Zelensky as a inauguration or a victory day present to Vladimir Putin. What they don't understand, though, is that unlike in Russia, where Putin is the state and the state is Putin, without Putin, the state is
the land and the king are one. Right.
In Ukraine, if Zelensky were to die, somebody else would take his place. The struggle itself is bigger than any one person. So the Russians don't understand this, and they're revealing their ignorance and their lack of understanding about Ukraine and why Ukraine is fighting by this kind of tactic. Because nothing would change. Nothing would change if Zelensky suddenly died. Nothing substantive. I mean, he would be martyred.
Right.
But
it wouldn't change the battle strategy. It wouldn't change the people of Ukraine, what they want to do. Right.
That's right. And Russians literally, it's really shocking sometimes when you get into their mentality of how little they really do understand about the West, or how much how little they understand about Ukraine. If you don't, let's not take the big picture West. I mean, their own, there's a common language. There's a long-standing relationship. It's a colony to an empire. They should understand Ukraine better than they do, but they don't, because there's this fundamental inflection point where they don't get the fact that it isn't about Ukraine the state. It's about Ukrainians the people, and the people who want to live free from imperial rule. They don't want to be a colony anymore. And so it's just, if you kill Zelensky, somebody else will take their place. If you kill Ukrainians, on the battlefield, there will be Ukrainians who, step up and take their place. It's a fundamental lack of understanding of their enemy, the Ukrainians. And it's just pathetic. So a thwarted assassination attempt, not the first, probably won't be the last. But even if it was, even if it had been successful, somebody else would have stepped in and kept going. So there's
Yeah,
that. We have May 9th coming up tomorrow.
that's tomorrow. Yeah,
Uh,
it's Victory Day for
there's
Russia,
Victory
and
Day. It's
yeah.
the day, yeah, it's the day that the Russians celebrate
Mm-hmm.
um, the victory over Nazi Germany, and right and good that they should. The Third Reich was an abomination.
Mm-hmm.
However, having said that, and now this will be my third May 9th that I will have celebrated, I
Right.
would have commemorated, not celebrated, in Ukraine. And I went through 5 years in Moscow, and I saw that day 5 times in on Red Square with the military parade and the atmosphere in the town. Russians celebrate that day.
Mm-hmm.
Ukrainians commemorate it. They notice it. They mark it on the calendar. But it is far more subdued here. It is a day of tragedy. It is a day to think about the cost and the horrors of that time and how
Right.
awful that was. They don't celebrate May 9th here.
Mm-hmm.
They commemorate it. They mark it
Yeah.
because this is where actually most of the killing was done. When we think about the Soviet invasion or the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, it was Belarus and it was Ukraine that took the massive brunt of the attack.
Right.
Yes, there was the thrust on Moscow. Yes, there was the siege of Leningrad,
Mm-hmm.
of St. Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
Leningrad. Then, yes, of course, there was Stalingrad. But by and large, the cost was highest here on these territories, Belarus and Ukraine. Uh, so this is no cause for celebration here. So
Mm-hmm.
but they'll mark it tomorrow. It'll be a very solemn day. People will go to the churches. People will, and meanwhile in Moscow, it is because it's not the Second World War is not history to Russians. It's religion, which is why they invoked
Well, it's
Nazis here in
yeah,
Ukraine.
sure.
It's they're
It's like saying
regurgitating these.
devils about other people.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
it's it's so deeply it's so deeply ingrained in their psyche and in their identity. And it again is a celebration because they won and all these other things. Um, but it transcends history. It is this kind of it's a religion there. Whereas here in Ukraine, it's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cause for celebration. So we'll see them dressing up in vintage clothing and dressing their kids in
Right.
vintage clothing, and it'll be a total party festival atmosphere in Moscow, and here in Kiev it'll be churches and laying
Right.
wreaths and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
of
Which
course in
and
Moscow they've got
again,
the
yeah.
carcasses
Again.
of NATO weaponry,
Mm-hmm.
but we did that first and did it better.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that that there's so much like there's so many people getting arrested in Russia for pomp and circumstance for throwing parties, lavish parties, especially, and that kind of stuff. There's a regular story that we hear all the time about like the oligarchs and the uber rich and the Kremlin connected throwing these like nude parties and fuck around parties all the time, and then there's always this weird backlash, and those people get rounded up, and then this happens, and it's just like, well, this is the one time we could do it. It's kind of like it's kind of like the Saudis. You can only party in Dubai when the Saudis are there to partake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anytime else, it's a violation of religious code. But if they're there in the room, I mean, if you're pouring,
If they're
you
in
know,
on it, yeah.
right, then it's okay, right?
Oh, there's one other thing we should mention about the inauguration,
Yeah.
which I had failed to mention earlier. Shoigu wasn't there. Defense minister, Russian defense minister Shoigu was not at the inauguration, which is incredibly suspect. This in light of his deputy facing Shoigu's. So the deputy
Right.
defense minister is facing corruption charges. Shoigu might be in trouble. And
Yeah,
Putin
that
may
part's
be
been kind of
planning
lost in
on
the slipstream lately, because it's a rather large story, but it hasn't. It's one of those things like, yeah, okay, maybe again, but it really does seem like it's taking this time.
It does, and it might be that Putin is looking to shift the blame from him to
Hmm.
Shoigu.
Right.
Shoigu is somebody who can be replaced,
Hmm.
and so again, it is still always this concept of
Right.
it can't be the czar. The czar has got to be beyond reproachment. It must be a problem with his underlings. He's hired bad people. They've failed him. They have gone against his wishes, or they're pursuing their own selfish interests. It can't be the czar's problem. It can't be Putin who is at fault,
Right.
because of course Putin
He
has
doesn't
to
do anything
be.
wrong. Right. He has to be right.
He can't. Yeah, he can't be the one at fault here, because then, who are we? What are we doing? Sort of the anxiety and the questions start to creep in.
Hmm.
So you can get somebody very close to Putin, blame it on him, Shoigu,
Sure.
and then wipe the slate clean and rinse and repeat. And then he'll keep doing that with his inner circle until I think
He runs out of
it's
people,
the
or nobody,
inevitable
or there are no
happens. And
takers for the job. Yeah, it's very
yeah,
much like Trump.
or people could just get
Yeah.
sick of it.
Nevitz forever in the chat says sounds just like Drumpf, and it does. It's exactly that methodology. It's that
Exact same
it's never
mentality.
you're the perfect person to fix everything. You're the solution to everyone's problems. But if anything goes wrong, it's somebody else's fucking fault, right?
That's right.
Also, I would like to say that we talk a lot about what impact both sanctions and military impact is having on Russia ultimately, and I think one of the biggest one is Gazprom. I don't know if you saw
I'm
this
glad you're
report.
bringing this up.
Yes. So Gazprom reported $6.9 billion in net losses in 2023. For the who's at home, that's like 41% of their total revenue, almost a 50% drop in revenue specifically.
And this is Gazprom.
Yes, and this is Gazprom. This is the big one.
You have to understand. The importance of Gazprom
Yeah.
to the Russian economy,
Mhm.
certainly, but I mean just Russia as a whole. It's what's somebody, was it McCain that referred to Russia as
A gas station
gas
with
station with nukes?
Yeah.
It really, and Gazprom is the state-run. There are other smaller
Yeah.
gas
That's
and
the
energy,
it's
but
the Aramco of
Gazprom
Russia.
is absolutely, and it is hugely integral to the running of the state.
Mhm.
It's
It
and so for
finances the
them
state more than
to,
almost anything, certainly more than
and
individual
also drives it
taxes.
as an engine.
Right.
Also drives it as an engine.
Hmm.
A lot of work, a lot of people. Their tentacles spread far and wide within
Hmm.
Russia. You can always get some sort of construction job, or some sort of peripheral thing
Right.
that
You
serves
can
Gazprom, because
build the
it's
economy
enormous.
up by shuffling around Gazprom. And by the way, for those who's at home that are in the hashtag fuck Carter Page crowd, Carter Page worked for Gazprom at one point. That was his claim to fame that got him on the
Consultant, I
Trump
believe.
campaign. Yeah, he was a consultant, but I mean, and it might,
Well,
honest to
work for
God,
them, took their money.
Yep, he took their
That's
money,
the important
and
thing.
I guarantee, by the way, he didn't give them advice. He's a fucking moron. What he did was carry envelopes back and forth. Is what he did. But Carter Page specifically, worked for Gazprom. That's not a good feather in your cap, and never will be. It's a bad. That's never a bragging point, especially from this point on. Certainly since the war started, but never has been. If you were in bed with them on Gazprom, it's one of the ways they could shuffle money around and pay people off. It was also, you got a organization that big that's tied that deeply to the Kremlin itself. You can fucking funnel money out to people. All this stuff they talk about, how like defense contractors grift and give people, money, and it's all a big side money market making scheme or whatever. Well, if any Republican tells you that, by the way, especially the ones that are on the National Security Committee or on the Budget Committee or any of that stuff, then it's their fucking fault that happened, because we have a system in place to audit those things and make sure that shit's not happening. Russia doesn't give a shit. Russia hands this money out, and this is one of their main peripheral ways to go.
Oh,
We'll
it's a
get somebody on the tit.
kleptocracy.
Yeah, we'll get some people on the tit. We'll just pay it through Gazprom because it's the biggest. Nobody even looks. Nobody can even judge how much. Nobody knows how much oil we're pulling out of the fucking Perma.
And it operates.
the Siberian
and
basin.
It operates in cash.
Yes,
It operates with.
but it used to.
It's a fundamental part of
Right.
the kleptocracy.
Now it works in yuan, but yeah,
Yeah, now it does.
this is look
So
at this chart.
That's
Yeah.
really troubling news if you're
Yeah.
Russia.
Mhm.
The Gazprom is now operating in the black. Operating in the red.
Red. Yep.
It's not good.
On top of that,
all
by
of
the way,
these little signs.
remember how China and the BRICS were gonna leg sweep the U.S. dollar, and how they don't need us. They can sell all this stuff to China, and they don't need the U.S. and the West and all this shit. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of my favorite headlines of the recent time period. Russia forecasts lower price for its gas to China versus Europe. Prices to China seen as much as 28% below those for Europe. Russia expects nat gas output exports to grow in the midterm because they have to crank out more because they're making 28% less on the fucking product. Of course, they're turning
and
up
they're a
output.
vassal state
Yes.
now,
And they're paying in
quickly
yuan.
becoming a vassal state.
Yeah, they're paying. The Chinese are paying in yuan, and you can only buy shit from China with yuan. It's not a secondary tradable currency. Shit, you can buy more stuff with the Indian rupee than you can with the Chinese yuan these days. It's fucking weird. Yeah.
And we often forget because there is this preoccupation currently.
China's eating
with
our lunch,
Russia,
drink.
with the West.
Yeah.
Is that, and it's true. Russia has had a long-standing love-hate relationship with the West.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also
love our money, hate our values.
Really deep hatred of China.
Mm-hmm.
Deep historical hatred of China that goes back centuries. So I'm sure that it is being downplayed domestically within Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm betting that your average Russian is not pelted with the news that we are swiftly becoming a vassal state of Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, it's going to be unavoidable. And though all those Russian nationalists who think that Russia is serving the West its lunch and
Mm-hmm.
Are going to be like, wait, we do the bidding of who now?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And that's coming. It will be unavoidable at some point that becomes painfully obvious to your average Russian.
Right.
So look, all of these things are it's getting to the point where it's going to be unavoidable. You can't ignore it that Russia is losing this war badly, really badly.
Yeah.
And then the consequences of losing this war are going to be devastating to the Russians. They've already lost Odessa. They're never going to get it back. Crimea is for all the threats that are happening to Kharkiv right now, there are a number of threats that are coming for Crimea. They're going to take out the railway for sure, which only just began operating between mainland Russia and the Crimean Peninsula, and they're going to take out the bridge. And you can't ignore that. And Russians are going to have to accept the fact that Putin's adventurism has just been one of the most catastrophic decisions for Russia since certainly Afghanistan, but I would say
fur hats in the summer.
No, but I think this is. I'm trying to think of a worse. Maybe getting involved in World War I.
Right.
When Nicholas decided that he was going to side with the Serbs, because of course that was absolutely catastrophic,
right,
for Russia, and led to the Bolshevik Revolution and the fall of the House of Romanov and loss of empire and all that good stuff. I would have to say that Putin's decision to invade Ukraine this way is on par with that. Maybe potentially worse.
Right.
Maybe not quite as bad. I don't know. It depends on what happens. It depends on what happens to Russia
Yeah.
when
Well,
it's
yeah.
obvious that they're going to.
I mean, obviously, this relationship with China, which is, without reservation or whatever they said, is obviously it's a lot of,
What did
sure
they
they've
say?
lost 23% in of revenue and in selling gas to China that they would sell someplace. Sure, but obviously China's going to make up for that with goods and services and let's say, I don't know, something like shipping, for example. Oh, wait a second. Bad news for Putin. China hikes the cost of shipping goods to Russia. Listen to this shit. According to a recent report from Infotrans Media Belarus, the cost of shipping goods from China to Russia and Belarus has seen a substantial increase. Direct rail freight rates are up $500 to $800 depending on the destination, while ocean freight rates have surged from $800 to $1,500. Maybe that's because the Houthis, who are supposed to be attacking Jews, keep firing on Chinese and Russian ships, largely because they're parking next to each other and exchanging stuff to avoid sanctions. But who am I to point that out? The reason behind the spike, the decision to raise prices was made by Chinese authorities. That nothing says endless friendship like the Chinese authorities going, goose them a little. Just goose them. Primary reasons cited by shipping companies include a notable decrease in the availability of free containers in China. The fuck? And significant congestion at the borders. No. Just bullshit. These logistical bottlenecks have led to a scarcity of available slots on ships, with current bookings only open for the end of the current month, beginning of June. By the way, no, they were giving Russia a deal, and then they once they started shipping to other countries, the U.S. and other places again, and trying to kiss our ass again after they told us to go fuck ourselves, they did a huge about face. They invited Yellen and Blinken over. They're trying to fucking land this plane without crashing it into the fucking mountain. And to do that, they're trying to, between Temu and all their other shit, trying to circumvent the cost of goods and stuff. They're back to shipping shit for free, essentially. And so they can't afford to give Russia a break on the shit they're already giving them a break on. So they just stopped. Because why should they help them? It's fucking hilarious.
It also exemplifies, that while Russia is an enormous country, a huge swath of it, I mean, a vast stretch of the territory is completely uninhabitable and completely, you can't traverse it for months out of the year. And so that's why are you shipping from China to Russia by way of sea routes?
Yes.
You shouldn't have to.
By the Red
Load
Sea.
it on a train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't you do it? Because Russia, that huge stretch of land that Russia owns is useless.
Yeah.
The only reason that they hold it is to rip stuff out of the ground, because that's all the Russians do.
Right.
They don't produce anything.
They're not building anything
just
there.
Rip stuff. They don't build anything.
Right.
They just rip stuff out of the ground and sell it on the open market.
Can I point out my favorite part of the shipping story? It's my favorite. It's my favorite part of it. The container conundrum. Adding to the complexity of the situation is the behavior of Russian companies regarding Chinese shipping containers. It has been reported that these containers are increasingly being scrapped for metal in Russia. This is economically more viable than returning them, given the profits from metal collectors. They're basically using them to up armor their trucks and build shit. They're scavenging the fucking containers. It's so good. It's so fucking good. But again, Scott Ritter, tell me how America's imperialist and the Russians are the good guys and are totally on top of this, baby.
Yep. And it's inevitable that Russia's gonna
win. Right.
Yeah. Bull. Shit. That narrative, that I still don't. And thank God that the $61 billion in aid was passed.
Yes.
But this narrative that I am hearing, especially post approval of the aid package, that it is inevitable that Ukraine will lose this war.
Well, that's what they were selling beforehand. That's what they were trying to stop the
Well, I think
payment.
they're still selling it.
They are, but they have to because they sound stupid if they just stop talking about it. I think that whole thing was like, why are we throwing good money after bad? Well, the money's already gone, so that's a stupid point to make or whatever. At this point, maybe they're just trying to stop what they think is another aid package probably coming in August, July, something like that.
We'll see.
I don't. It won't be necessary because again, the Lend-Lease aspect of it has been set up, and all we got to do is fund the production in the United States, which is what a lot of this was about. It wasn't about sending more stuff to Ukraine. It was like rebuilding the stuff so we could Lend-Lease it overseas, right? It was a a bit of a shell game to get around Republicans so that you could turn that $60 billion into what's effectively $180 billion worth of goods and services that eventually will be paid back, is the idea. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be July or August. I would hope 61 billion would take us a little bit further than
Sure.
that. I don't know, but I'd like it if it took us through November. Because once the election is in our rearview mirror, then we
full speed ahead.
We go
right,
full speed ahead.
Well,
Absolutely.
and again, we need this is yet more reason for a blue wave. The interesting thing is that like a lot of the Republicans are accusing Mike Johnson of folding on Ukraine and betraying the American taxpayer. When in reality, he's just trying to keep this off the table so that they don't fuck their re-election chances in the fall, because if we have to do this again or Ukrainians continue to die and there's an I told you so storyline that goes all the way up to the fucking election, they're going to lose by even more than they are right now. He was trying to help them. These dumb motherfuckers just don't realize that he was trying to do them a favor. And so I don't know. By the way, we're near the end of the hour and I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is your new podcast. Do you have a date for the first release or
well, the
first recording or whatever?
I don't want to jinx it, but no,
sure.
Soon. So I mean, I keep saying soon, but I want to do. I would rather do it later and do it right.
Sure.
Rush it and get it out.
Yeah. Unlike me,
I might do. I might drop a little like introduction, and explain what the podcast is going to be about. What for those who have not been privy to our conversations or other stuff. Introduce myself, that sort of thing. Put that out first. The first interview, I'm hoping to have concluded very soon. Again, I don't want to jinx it.
Okay.
But I'm waiting for a particular individual who's agreed to sit down with me, and that'll be my first one.
Excellent.
I need to have for the whole 2 hours. We could yap. We could yap for 2 hours, I'm sure, but I want to eat.
Understood. Yeah, I don't get to use him up. Just you vultures.
Dance, monkey, dance.
Dance, monkey, dance.
Monkey.
That's right.
Come on.
That's right. In the meantime, though,
you're gonna have to tune in on Saturday.
That's right. Saturday, I will be doing the show from Madison, Wisconsin, because Sexy Liberal is going to be in Madison on Saturday night.
West.
Yep. Be a good time. If I'm able to get in there and get in a rental car and drive all the way to Chicago and make it, I will try. But I think when I land, I would get there just in time to miss it if I drove. So, plus I'd get a ticket and miss it. Both. That's it. So, anyways, you're wonderful and we're glad you're with us and thanks so much. And,
Sure.
and Saturday, I look forward to, we'll take more. We're
going to keep trying to keep Ukraine on people's minds.
That's right.
Try and keep it in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye on Kharkiv. Don't be surprised if that gets ugly. I've got people contacts within the city, so I will be kept abreast of what's happening there. Keep an eye on Tbilisi in Georgia, something we didn't really discuss
today.
It's
a constant movement right now.
There hasn't been a really major development in Tbilisi,
right?
But I fear it is the calm before the storm because neither side can back down from that. It is not just about the bill anymore. It's about Georgian sovereignty and corruption and Moscow's corruption in Georgia. I think I'm sad to say, I think it's going to be so nasty.
Right.
So keep on those two things are until we speak again. Those are the two things I would recommend people keeping their eye on is Kharkiv and Tbilisi.
That's right.
We will see. Look, the F-16s are going to start flying soon. In with Ukrainian pilots. There's already reports that there are artillery rounds that are making it to the front lines. So we shall see how this goes. But they're certainly not. They're not going to take Chasiv Yar before tomorrow.
Yasem ya,
which is
Yasem ya. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Every time. But
anyhow,
but
keep an eye
I want to
just,
say to you, Bliss, don't worry
Oh,
about
dear
it. Okay,
God.
everything all right. Forget about it,
Oh,
and
God.
remember that for
Oh, God.
yourself. Okay, buddy.
That's awful.
I mean, it's very terrible. It's pretty terrible. I had a much better one a while back, but I got to find it again. It's pretty terrible.
But I've been speaking to sadly our media. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Our press corps is doing a shit job. Is doing a really shit job in covering this war. I know that there are a couple of outlets that have kind of returned here for the inauguration and for May 9th and for a potential offensive in Kharkiv because they think that maybe that'll give them some clicks and views. But generally, the press corps has done a shitty job here, and so it's our responsibility. Falls to just people with webcams to be doing the job that.
Thank God it's there. Thank God it's actually happening. I mean,
yeah, thank God.
World War II is fucking ham radios around the world. So it's a good sign. So thank you so much, Philip. Thanks, everybody.
Right,
love you guys. And I will see you on Saturday. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Off he goes. There he goes. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Ittner. Going to go get something to eat so we don't torture him to death with starvation. Why won't you just leave him alone? You poor people. Yes. So, Slava Ukraine and Flek Booty Putin. I agree. You and Hal are the real press corps. Thank you, Becky. I appreciate that. We do our best. So we'll get there eventually. There was one other thing I want to talk about. I don't have time. I'll do it this afternoon. Because if I start down this road, I will not stop. Just so get used to the idea. Just consider yourself teased. I may have a history assignment for everybody that I think it is like a great dig in that will shift your perspective to a realistic. I'm going to say is Deerfield, Massachusetts, and then anybody who wants to look that up, you'll find that out. But it's do whenever you want, but I might be bringing it up because it occurred to me there were a lot of similarities with what we're seeing between what was effectively at the time between the Deerfield massacre was based on this idea that the French were aligning with certain natives up there, and then the Brits were aligning with other natives down in the States, and that war back and forth between the two of them. It's a fascinating read, and the parallels are enormous between what's happening with Russia and Ukraine and what's happening with Israel and Gaza. It's shit in a lot of ways we got over centuries ago, interestingly enough, that is still an open wound everywhere else. And it's fascinating to look at it through that perspective. Yeah, exactly, Paul Young. It's some gnarly shit. But it's a fascinating story if you don't know it already. So anyways, much love to you guys. Don't get a brainworm, and I will see you later this afternoon, I think. Depends on if this button works. Oh yeah, look at that. Holy shit. Hit that like, everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you this afternoon.